Mr. Randy Collins asked us, he says, first of all, I want to thank you for creating this platform so there could be some social interaction among the culture of the Celtic community. So we did not do it alone, but thank you.
Without the community, there would be no community.
Right, there would be us.
So thank you all.
My question is, what direction do you see the Celtic heritage scene heading, and what can we do to keep the flames of interest and curiosity building? So, we've commented on this before a few times, but it's always an interesting thought.
What direction is it heading?
Northeast-ish.
That's a fair point. Right up 95.
Following the trade winds.
What direction is it heading? It's heading the same direction it's always been heading. You're talking family. If we're talking family lineage stuff and just passing down stories and passing down, culture and that kind of thing, I think it's going the same direction. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think that direction would massively change because it's your own on a personal level, on a family level.
I don't think it's even a direction. It's just like that's where it doesn't move. That's the linchpin. That's the constant. That's what makes it a culture in the first place.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm gonna pontificate. What do you think?
For once, I don't feel like I have any really super amazing thoughts on this one, but I think I'll say it's becoming more heterogeneous and it's actually getting more colorful. I think there's as people from Gallic backgrounds spread out across the world, largely due to the British Empire, they encountered different parts of the world and different cultures, and there's been interaction and intermarriage all over the world. And so there's a little touch of Gallic culture in a lot of different places, and there's a lot of cross-pollination. So I think we were just talking about tartans. I think the fact that you see so many tartans now that are made by people to represent something which ostensibly has nothing to do with Scotland.
The Ukraine tartan, and things like Ukraine,
that. Yeah, exactly. But the point is that cultural nugget, that cultural art form Symbolism of tartan is translatable into other contexts. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing is basically that in the digital age, as cultures are able to interact with each other more, there's more variety of expression. So I think you see this in the music also. Like, witness the fact that one of our favorite bands, Albanoch, who are basically traditional, like, they call it tribal pipes and drums, and they started off as like kind of a street performer act in Edinburgh, I think, but
Glasgow
or Edinburgh. But the point is, their thing is this very tribal, almost a mythic proportion, kind of like ideal of Scottish warrior music. Like battle pipes and war drums and it's very high blood and stuff. And then a few years back, they added a didgeridoo as part of their instrument lineup. Mm-hmm. There's no didgeridoos in Scotland, so they got the idea from somewhere.
Unless Drew's there, there's at least one. That's
how is didgeridoo? I haven't seen him in a long time. But you take my meaning. The point is that it's a cooler sound now. They've added dimension to it, so I think we're seeing more dimension. I
would even go more basic. Dropkick Murphys or the Real Mackenzies or the Pogues, taking traditional Irish influenced or Scottish influenced music and injecting it into rock and roll or punk rock kind of music.
Yeah.
Even those cross pollinations, it's just a fun mixture of different stuff.
I agree. I think it's getting more popular because people are more easily able to find it, I think is what's happening now. Naysayers out there will say, well, you're just going to water down the culture by doing that. It's like, no, I don't think so. I'm a big believer in diffusion. I went to school for anthropology, and so I'm a big believer in cultural diffusion and cross-pollination, creating new and cooler ideas. More color.
Yes, I will put in. You're starting to go where I was about to go with it. I'm going to be all hands today. Yes, and I know they're back there laughing because they saw me doing it earlier. I don't know. I saw you guys laughing at me. It's fine. Everyone laughs at me. I laugh at me. The one thing I was thinking about was, yes, I like the I'm of two minds. I like having things that are that stand on their own, that are pure for purity's sake and experiencing the one thing.
Right.
I also
And timeless.
understand and timeless, correct. I also like having things intermingled and kind of cross-pollinated. I like
Yeah.
seeing, a Chinese bride and a Scottish groom at a wedding or something like that.
Right, right.
It's fun marrying the cultures together. Where I would say it could potentially get dangerous, and I'll use the term dangerous, is in watering down things, in becoming, not really watering down, but in becoming a caricature of the thing. So in going to festivals and going to events and going just like the lowest common denominator of, hey, I want to feel Scottish today, so I'm going to buy a $20 kilt, or I'm going to wrap this tablecloth around me because it looks good. That's where it gets dangerous for me, because it's no longer celebrating the culture. It's a caricature of the culture, so you can play at it for the day. And it's a fine line to walk.
I think you've always had that, and I think other cultures, especially expressions of those cultures in this particular country, have had a much worse time of it than the Celts have. Frankly, personal opinion there. But there's always going to be people who look at the surface level and it's a cliche or a caricature or a stereotype. I think that people are more easily educated, and that you're seeing more backlash against that these days. I encounter more people. You still have the party people who just want to, like, oh, I'm going to be a Scotsman for Halloween and all that kind of
Woo,
stuff.
gotta throw on my green plastic beads for St. Patrick's Day.
Exactly. Yep. But at the same time, I think you have more people who it's easier to tell people, okay, well, you're kind of making fun of something that actually has a lot of depth and beauty to it if you look at it more closely. And there's more pushback against the cliche people. You know what I mean? It's
but at the same, but it's a weird one, because you don't want to discourage people who are just finding it for the first time.
No.
So
absolutely not.
if their way to just dip their toe in the water, so to speak, is to go to a St. Patrick's Day parade and they have their green plastic bowler on that day, you don't want them to feel bad for doing it, but you want to educate them and say, like, hey, well, here's what maybe you could wear instead of that next year.
Well,
so it's the balance.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where we get it. I think the only answer to that is to lead by example, as we've said before. Basically, you're always going to have what my mom would call Philistines, who don't really appreciate what they're doing. It's just they're doing the magpie thing, and it's shiny and cute and fun, and they're just going to pick it up and then drop it again. That's just human nature. But if you can set a good example, then you can both maintain the compass point of tradition and also, spread out.
Bring them around.
Yeah, bring them around.
Yeah.
So
I remember when we started.
I'm going to say things are getting better. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, but
things are getting a lot cooler. If you look, especially the music. I'm glad we touched on that, because listen to some of the folk shows like on NPR and stuff. So the music, the folk music from all around has just gotten much more diverse and interesting and creative.
Yeah, music is one place where I firmly believe that you don't need purity of a thing, where blending different things together is it just to see what happens makes it fun, makes it better, makes it more interesting, and allows for a whole new thing to evolve out of it. Like Celtic rock wasn't a thing until the Pogues, or Celtic punk wasn't a thing until Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly and the Real Mackenzies. So it's fun to watch it evolve, and for different flavors to it's kind of like food, like mixing it all together and see what works and see what doesn't.
Yep.
So, indeed, but walking back to the other point, I think walking people up the scale of they have to start somewhere. Everyone has to start somewhere, and if you start by jumping in and saying, okay, I'm going to spend $1,500 on an outfit, great, like you're going to get good stuff. I hope. But some people start with literally just like something cheap and like wearing a costume for Halloween just because that's what they need for the guts to wear it out in public for the first time.
Right.
So you don't want to lambast them for wearing something that's offensive to you as somebody who enjoys the culture and but you want to encourage them to go further with it and maybe do something a little bit better next time.
Right.
So I remember when we first started doing the military tartans, Strathmore, one of the mills over in Scotland, is the only mill to do the branches of the U.S. military. And I went to them and I said, hey, look, I want to do military tartans in polyviscose fabric. And they said, well, because they don't do PV. It's only Martin Mills. It's only a different mill. And so I'm asking them for tartans that they are the only ones who do, to do it in a different fabric at a cheaper price point. And they said, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, people who are in the military can't necessarily afford a $300, $500, $600 kilt, but they need to get into it. And we're not just saying, great, here you go, there's your kilt. See you in, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. We're actively trying to walk people up the scale of quality. We're trying to educate people. We're trying to get them involved in the culture and want to support Scottish mills and that kind of stuff. So they kind of understood where we were going with it. So we actually got their permission to have the military tartans woven in polyviscose fabric, and they have nothing to do with it. But we want people to start. We recognize that people need to start where they're comfortable spending their hard-earned money to get into it, and at a particular price point, level, whatever you want to call it. And eventually, over time, they're going to be like, you know what? I do like this. I do wear this more than once. I do want something a little bit nicer to wear to a formal dinner. So then let me get wool. And then they kind of move up the scale. So it's the education process. It's the moving process. It's not just, letting people just do the cheap fun, the cheap and cheerful, as they could say in Scotland, the cheap and cheerful route. But it's educating them along the way so that they understand, oh, okay, this is why they do things this way. This is how it should be done. Okay, this is actually the tradition, actually the heritage that I'm honoring. Maybe I should do this as well.
Yeah. So, again, to the second part of his question, how can you boost things? Be a good example and be supportive when people shows even a modicum of interest.
Whether that's in your family, in your friend circle, whether it's your wife, your husband, whatever it is, yes, bring them in. Let them experience it with you. If you're in the pool, the answer is come on in. The water's fine. The answer is not stay out of there with that cheap BS acrylic kilt. How dare you? Get away. Don't come in here. The answer is it's a great place to start. Come on in. Let's do stuff together. Let's have fun with this. Let's experience this together, and then keep it moving forward.
And ask them what their interests are. I mean, I always find I was like, hey, cool, I can tell you're into this stuff. What are you most interested in? What do you want to learn about? Oh yeah, me too. I like that. So meet people where they are. Also, it always works if you set up some speakers coming out of your basement windows and blast bagpipe music between 12 and 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like clockwork. So people like consistency like that.
What's that meme? Yeah, my neighbor was banging on my door at 2 a.m. Luckily, I was up playing my bagpipes at the time.
Yep.
It's but it's meeting people where they're at. It's also taking the bits of heritage that you enjoy, whether that's the music, whether that's Celtic festivals, whether that's clan tents, whether it's just your family stories. It's all of it. And just making sure you're passing it on to your kids, make sure you're getting other people involved, making sure you're volunteering, making sure you're doing things to keep it moving forward.
Share the culture, share what you're interested in, as long as you're not being pushy about it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, so the immediate joke that came to my mind after we did this one was, ask not what your community can do for you, ask what you can do for your community. But seriously, we do believe in supporting this community through volunteerism, through telling your family stories, to teaching people in your community and your friends, your kids, what this stuff is all about and what that means to you on a personal level. So if you want some more of our thoughts on that, we do have some videos on that over here. But tell us in the comments how you have enacted your heritage kind of on a daily basis down in the comments. We'd love to hear.